Hello, Giants fans, and welcome to your Valentine's Views podcast for Friday, September 30th. I'm your host, Ed Valentine of Big Blue View, and we're coming to you a couple of days before your New York Giants host the Chicago Bears in week 4 of the NFL season. Please remember to subscribe to Big Blue View Radio wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you're watching us on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe there as well. Joining me today to break down Sunday's game is Lester Wiltfong of SB Nation's Bears website, Windy City Gridiron. Lester, thank you very, very much for dropping by.
Anytime, Ed. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just I'm still recovering from Monday night a little bit as we record this on Wednesday afternoon. I'm too old to work until 4 o'clock in the morning and then get up at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, those night games are rough for us. I mean, it's like for what I do is I always take off the next day after night games at the real job. I take that day off. I'm like, I'm going to be up way too long. I'm taking off. I need time to write this, to get the podcast set up. So yeah, it's the side gig takes precedence on those night games.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do. So, but just like the NFL players, we're troopers. We get up, we move on, and we move on to the next week, which this week for the Giants is the Bears. And I don't know about you, but I look at both of these teams, both with what people would consider surprising 2-1 records at this point in this season. And I find these two teams to be very similar. Maybe not exact copies of each other on the field, but two teams with new GMs, two teams with brand new head coaches, two teams who, while Justin Fields is a second-year guy and Daniel Jones is a fourth-year guy, two teams trying to figure out if they have the right quarterbacks to go forward with, and kind of trying to build rosters that are lacking in a lot of areas. I mean, do you see these two teams kind of the same way that I do?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think as fans for both franchises, we looked at this year as probably as a rebuild or a reset. But then the fact that both teams are 2-1 at this point is a little surprising. As far as what the Bears are doing, I mean, for our fans, we wanted Justin Fields to start showing, he's the guy. I mean, you said it's only his second year. I think this will be only his 14th, 15th start as a pro. But, the wins are nice, but we want to know if we got the guy. I mean, the Bears haven't had a quarterback since, Sid Luckman that has been the actual franchise guy. That's a long time. So
Yeah.
we want to know if we have the guy. 2-1 is nice, but at the end of the day, man, if you don't have the quarterback, you have no chance long term.
And I think you raise a good point, and we'll talk about Fields in a minute, but it's very, very easy for NFL fans and fans of any team. You get so locked into the week by week, the roller coaster ride. But in context, I think for both of these teams, it's not about where they are. It's about where they're trying to go. And I think you just speak to how hard it is as a fan, and your Bears fan base, how hard it is to remind people that it's not necessarily about today.
Yeah, I mean, on our podcast, what we've done is we've tried to set the narrative and the expectations for this season. As for our listeners, is look, this is a reset. This is a rebuild. It's 65, 67 million in dead cap space this season. They had no first round draft pick this season. So the new GM Ryan Poles came in and he kind of had an idea that, let's get a reset now and we'll really go chips in, next season. But the coaching staff feel like, hey, they're coaching to win games now. I mean, yeah, you want to see the young guys develop. That's obviously part of the plan. But it's just a different mentality from the coaching staff, because the coaching staff, they're coaching to win games, and they're 2-1. That's been really a run heavy game plan. They're trying to keep things slow, keep things, keep games close, and trying, and get those W's. But it's just different mentality from the front office to what the coaching staff does. But as fans, like I was saying, we want those young guys to develop. If Justin Fields isn't the guy, if he can't show enough this year where they say, yeah, okay, I see the potential, I see him moving forward. He has what it takes to be, the franchise quarterback. If we don't have those answers at the end of the season, then we could be in a brand new reset next year too.
And it's interesting. I think we need to talk about Fields a little bit more. Obviously, Justin Fields, Bears, Giants, it's all sort of intertwined because it was the Bears Giants trade
Yeah.
a year ago that allowed you guys to get Justin Fields. So it's kind of a twofold question. And the first part of that question is, when you look at the trade that the Bears made, would you make the trade again? And the second part of that question is, the way that the Bears are playing right now, Chicago's completed 23 passes in 3 games. Their highest passing total is 105 yards. How do you figure out if he's the guy when you're playing football that way?
As far as why I do the trade again, yeah, I think you've got to take a swing at it. I mean, the Bears did not have a quarterback. I mean, they gave up on Mitch. They let him go. They brought in Andy Dalton. He wasn't going to be the long-term answer. So you got to take swings at it. You got to have bites at the apple. You have to keep bringing in young guys at that spot so you find the right guy. And you mentioned the passing stats. I mean, I talked about Sid Luckman earlier. Those are passing stats out of the 40s. I mean, that's what the Bears are dealing with now. So it's a fine line. How do you develop Fields, to know if he's the guy when you're only having, those few passes? But again, the coaching staff, they're not concerned about that. They want to win the game in front of him. And if they can win the game by running the ball, 65% of the time, that's what they're going to do. And they'll wait till Justin Fields proves to them. And at some point he'll show in practice, in the games, hey, it's clicking. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, the first 3 games, he's had a couple nice plays, but for the most part, it's been bad tape, bad decisions. The interceptions on him are bad. He's taken bad sacks still. He's changed his mechanics in the offseason. He's changed his footwork in the offseason. He's changed his arm angle in the offseason. And he's in a new offense. So he's got a lot of stuff going against him right now. I'll never bet against him because I know how hard he works. I saw the potential at Ohio State. So I think he'll get there. It's just going to take a little longer.
And the question becomes, new coaching staff, new GM who didn't draft him.
Yeah.
And it's a lot like where the Giants are with Daniel Jones, although Jones is in his 4th year. Do you think, how long do you think the leash is for Justin Fields? Will they wait beyond this year if they're still not sure, or will they look to move on again?
Everything we've heard from the reports are that this regime really likes Justin Fields. I mean, he is the prototypical hardworking quarterback. I mean, he's the guy. I mean, he does all the right things. He says all the right things. His football IQ is through the roof. He's a physical specimen. He has great arm talent. All the tools are there you want to see out of a franchise quarterback. You just got to put it together in the field. So I can't see them turning the page. Obviously this year he'll get this whole season. But unless there's just like a train wreck, unless it's like goes really south, I can't see them, making another change, next offseason. Because like I said, if that happens, if it goes that bad, now this franchise is in a whole other reset. And it's just, it just pushes that timetable back even more. So he gets this year for sure, unless it's, totally off the rails, he'll get next season. But like I said, he's not their guy. He's not their draft pick. So it's always in the back of their mind. I think they may want to bring in a young guy to compete as a reserve spot. Because right now it's the vet guy, but he'll have some time. There's some leash there for him.
And I'm curious too, you've kind of addressed it, but is the passing attack or lack thereof, is that so far, is that more about Justin Fields? Is it more about lack of wide receivers, lack of faith in the offensive line? Is there one, specific thing that you can point to for why the Bears have pretty much played, 1930s or 40s football to this point?
I think a little bit of everything you mentioned there. Ultimately, it comes down to Justin Fields. I mean, he's the guy, making the decisions. He's the guy pulling the trigger. Ultimately, it's on him. It falls on him. But you mentioned the receivers. I mean, they brought back Darnell Mooney, who was, he's was counted on to be their number one guy. Cole Kmet, their tight end, he was counted on to be a big part of the offense through 3 games. Both those guys have pretty much been non-existent. Their big offseason acquisition, I guess, was Byron Pringle, who is now injured. And even with Pringle, who he is, he's a 3 or a 4. He's not a top flight receiver in this game. They traded for N'Keal Harry, who has been hurt. There's some lack of weapons around him. I think they expected on the scheme to kind of solve a lot of those issues. They expected Fields to take a little more of a step than he has. It hasn't happened.
I do know Giants fans who would, trade you Kenny Golladay for, a bucket of ice chips or something.
I mean, that's been a talk on Bears Twitter. I mean, Golladay is a guy that's, on the trade block, what we hear. And, the Bears pursued him a season ago as a free agent. I think they had an offer on the table. He decided to go to New York. So, he's a local guy from the area. So I think Bears fans would be happy with that. If the deal's right, if there's something to be made there with a low draft pick, I think Ryan Poles will pull the trigger. But at this point, he's, like I said, it's from a front office standpoint, they're building towards next season to make their big splash.
Lester, you mentioned Ryan Poles. So let me ask you, Poles was a guy that was considered one of the front runners for the Giants GM job that went to Joe Shane. Matt Eberflus was not one of the guys that the Giants interviewed for their head coaching job. I get asked all the time about the Giants' new regime. So, and it's too early to pass any sort of definitive judgment,
Yeah.
but your initial impressions of the new Bears decision makers, and I'm particularly interested in Poles because he did interview with the Giants.
He's had some missteps in the offseason. He signed a guy to a contract and he didn't pass physical. I mean, that's not his fault. But it happens. There's been some other stuff with the trades. He didn't pursue weapons as aggressively as fans wanted to see him pursue them. Like I said, Pringle was his big guy on offense that he brought in. He made the trade for Harry, but N'Keal Harry is a failed first round draft pick, I guess you want to call him. Hasn't really done much in the NFL. So, and then of course the offensive line, he didn't really do much to address that. He threw 4 draft picks at it. He signed a couple of vets who to the date haven't been able to win jobs there. So it's been up and down, but I think Ryan Poles overall, he's playing the cards he's been dealt. I mean, Ryan Pace, had so much dead cap space. He was giving out void years like it was candy. And like I said, 60 some odd dead cap space this year, million. So he's dealing with what he has to deal with. He's trying to correct the roster. And look, this is a bad football team the last couple of years in Chicago. So there's a lot to fix there. So he's kind of taking his steps that he believes is right. Like you said, it's too early to tell. But so far, I've been pleased with Ryan Poles' job he's doing. And then the same with the coaching staff. Too early to tell, but so far I like the mentality. I like what he's bringing to the table with Coach Flus there. It's a different mindset. It's defensive, but they still have a good offensive scheme in place. Just we have to see it all click.
Let me ask you about, one of the offseason, controversies with the Bears, the offseason situation, linebacker Roquan Smith, tremendous player. But, the controversy with him and his future with the Bears, what do you think is going to happen there? Is Roquan Smith a long-term Chicago Bear, or do the Giants have a shot at him here?
I think, there was an offer on the table in the summer. It wasn't what he wanted to get. He's looking for top money. He wants, Shaq Leonard money. He wants to get that in that stratosphere. And, the Bears wanted to wait. He wanted to wait and see what he could do there. Well, like I said, the deal on the table is very, very good, very fair. He's in a brand new defense. He's for the first time in his career playing in an even front. He's playing the weak side linebacker spot, much different responsibilities than what he had before. So I think when the season ends, I think his numbers will be there. And I think, he'll be warranted another huge offer on the table. But at that point, does Roquan want to stay in Chicago? Does he want to go? Again, we're talking about an off-ball linebacker. Is that where you want to allocate a lot of your funds? In this day and age, you don't really, you don't usually pay those guys. But I think Roquan's one of those guys you want to pay because he's so good. He's so talented. He's so fast and athletic. He makes so many plays for you. And as he gets more comfortable in this scheme, we'll see the best of Roquan Smith as the year progresses.
All right, and we talked a lot about the similarities between the Giants and the Bears. 2-1, obviously, for both teams at this point, and I think that surprises some people. Long term, over 17 games, what would you feel good about for this team? What would your expectation be, as far as where Chicago, where you'd like to see them end up, or where you realistically think they could end up?
Before the year started, I figured they'd be 6-win team. I was along with Vegas. That's the Vegas over and under line on them. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I thought if everything really goes perfectly, if they get some luck along the way, I thought they could push for a playoff spot. And then in the NFC, we're talking 8 wins, 9 wins. That gets you in the playoffs in the NFC. So I thought there's a long shot chance for that happening. But realistically, I thought 6 wins. And then now, though, they're 2-1. I figured they'd lose against the Niners. The Packers game, of course, was I had as a loss. So I didn't think they'd be 2-1 at this point. And then you look at the schedule. I mean, they get the Giants coming up, and that's a winnable game for both franchises. I mean, they're both, like I said, evenly matched. They got the Patriots without Mac Jones, the Cowboys without Dak. So there's some quarterbacks coming up on their schedule that aren't the guys they expected to be there. So I would not be surprised this franchise has those 6 wins, much quicker than I thought.
And, I'm curious also, we've talked a lot about the similarities in the two franchises at this point. What is your sort of outside view of the Giants, the Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, Brian Daboll, New York Giants?
Dable's a guy that most Bears fans wanted. I mean, that's who a lot of Bears fans thought that they would get to come in and be the new head coach in Chicago. It was unexpected. They went with a defensive mind. You just assumed, they got a young quarterback. Let's find a good young offensive mind to kind of pair with him. And the fact they went with Coach Flus was a little bit surprising. But like I said, I'm on board with it now. But I think Dable's a great coach. I think he knows offense really well. He calls a good game. Jones has had some turnover issues, obviously, throughout his career. But, man, like Fields, I mean, the talent's there. I mean, he's a good athlete. He has a good arm. He has tightened things up. And if Dable can't get that figured out for him, then, it's probably going to be his last in New York. But then you mentioned Barkley, man. He looks like the Barkley of old. I mean, he looks really good this year so far. So that's going to be a tough task for the Bears to stop that running game.
And what are your, just finally, last thing here for you, what are your thoughts on Sunday? I mean, I think the Giants are favored by a couple of points here. This game for me is a toss-up game, and I look at it like, hey, if either one of these teams could get just one or two explosive plays out of their passing games, that might be the difference in this game, for me. But what are your thoughts on how you think Sunday might turn out?
Same. I think it's toss up. I mean, the Giants are 2.5 favorites now. It's in New York, so it's they have the home field going there. The Bears' passing game has been so bad so far, so we're just assuming at some point it's going to click. And the Giants, I think on paper, the Giants has a little worse defense than the Bears have. The offense for you guys is much better at this point. But man, the running game for the Bears, the scheme itself has been so beautiful to watch. I mean, they're doing some really nice things up front. Whether it's Herbert or Montgomery's day to day, he may not play in the game, but Khalil Herbert's a great fit for the scheme. I think the Bears are going to try and keep it close. They're going to run the ball, try and play tough defense. And I am picking the Bears. That's partly probably because I'm a Bears fan, but like I said, it's a toss up. I would not be surprised either way.
Yeah, me neither. And I'm going to take the Giants with the home field advantage. And I just if the Chicago offense is going to be one dimensional, I think that Wink Martindale's really going to enjoy.
Yeah.
Coming up with some creative ways to load that box with 8 or 9 guys and try to shut that running game down. But we'll see how it goes. And good luck to you on Sunday. And
same.
Thank you very, very much for spending some time. And Giants fans, as always, thank you for listening. Please remember to stay safe out there, take care of each other, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.